And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek here, where we talk all about mobile application development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we are going to visit with a couple of app developers who have created an extremely engaging and entertaining app that has some unique properties to it that you may not expect in a mobile game. They're here today with us to discuss it, and we'll get into the details a little later, but I just want to say, Scott, thanks for joining us. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Great to see you guys. Great to be here.
So we're also going to talk about iPhone 6 drop test. We're going to talk about Taptic, whether or not it's a gimmick or not, and we're also going to talk about, what was the fourth thing? I don't remember what it was. Oh, the carriers, yeah, and how they're trying to get rid of the subsidized strategy where you basically have cheap phones. So if you are in that space and considering going to a new phone or changing your plan, you might want to hang around for that conversation because there are some surprises in the mix. So we've got a big panel here. Everybody is full house, got a bunch of regulars, and I think we just want to get into today's discussion on Dr. Spin. So let's do that. Let's jump right into it. You guys have been working on Dr. Spin for how long?
Well,
Let's start there.
We started in January of 2012, so I think we're about 2 years and 8 months. It took from the initial idea to going live.
And you guys have a website, right?
Yeah, if you go to drspingame.com, that's the website.
Okay, excellent.
Yep, and we were lucky enough to have Apple's search start turning us up, so you can just search out Dr. Spin in the App Store as well.
Okay.
I like the intro video that you have for the game. It's really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it's built right in. It's into the game in the game itself, right?
Yes.
So, here, let's just watch that for a second.
It's good silent version. I like it.
Yeah, it works well with silent. It's almost a silent movie.
So there's no audio on your end?
No. Yeah, we're not hearing the audio.
Okay, well then I'll turn it up on this end then. Yeah, it's an excellent. There's a whole music track that goes with it, and it sounds like you guys have a chorus.
There's something interesting about this video. I don't know if you can explain, but I can explain it as well. That to do a portrait video took a lot of ingenuity. We actually had to flip the video to play back, as a regular 60:9 video, but had to make it. It's portrait, so we had to flip it over, and then in Corona I had to rotate it 90 degrees to get it to fit the screen to be the right dimensions.
Oh, that's interesting. No, I never really considered it.
So you can play vertical video. I know a lot of people don't like vertical video, but you can play vertical video in Corona. It's pretty interesting.
Cool.
Right. The fact that our game really has no orientation at all, which I'm sure we'll get more into, but basically the game is played rotating as you're going. So really, we just had to sort of settle on the fact that the menu screens were going to be portrait and the game would start in the portrait orientation. But once the game takes off, you're spinning your phone around, and so it has presented some interesting challenges as far as focus goes. Just the fact that it's sort of new in the way that there is no up in this game. Any direction is up at any time.
Okay, well let's back up a minute then and give the audience the story, the story itself of the game and how you progress through the levels and what you're supposed to be accomplishing.
Okay, so the way it works is in the game Dr. Spin, you are Dr. Spin's assistant, the unnamed assistant, and what you're doing is you're collecting zeta rays, and you do this by spinning the entire iPhone, or what we call the zeta scope. And when you do that, that little pie wedge looking shape that you're seeing in the middle of the circular zeta scope will rotate based on the direction that the device is being held. And the line in the middle, which we call the zeta ray, it rotates around the screen in varying patterns and in ever-increasing speeds. And you have to keep the pie wedge aligned in order to generate these zetas that bring Dr. Spin's creations to life. And if you're in the middle there, where you see that sometimes those extra lines are appearing, you double your score, and if you're in the outer edges, you get half as much. And then as you go further, we have multipliers. So the longer you play, basically, the higher your score can progress and by a greater margin than earlier games. So you gain the zetas while you're in alignment, and as soon as you fall out of alignment, those little red dots on the left lower hand corner, which we call post-track, are expended. And once you have no more post-track, the game ends. And while you're collecting the zetas, Dr. Spin appears in that little circular video monitor in the top, and he taunts you. And he speaks to you like this and says, "Oh, you're doing terrible." And,
okay, now we know who the voiceover work.
I wondered who the voiceover person was. Yeah, we're definitely missing a huge aspect of the game, and that's just the clever characterizations and just the really neat music, and it provides just this real immersive experience that we're unfortunately not getting on this on the stream here. But I did to definitely check out drspingame.com. There's a video there which might play on the stream.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put a link in the show notes to the, and I can actually embed the video
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a huge part of it because there's of course, every game has a good soundtrack that loops in the background, and this one does as well. And yeah, the doctor taunts you. There's a couple of times where I was trying to figure out, does he taunt you more or less based on your progress, or is it kind of the same every time?
Yeah, so he does actually taunt you as the game when you're down to just 5 units on the post tracker, he'll start to taunt you in more sort of cautious ways, like you gotta hurry up before you lose. And then there's some more taunts in there that we actually haven't even implemented in version 1 that we're going to put into the next release.
Are those in-app purchases?
No in-app purchases for us.
We're against it.
All the content for just a mere $1.99 is the future price, but right now we are on sale until the 5th of November at half price. So you get everything for your 99 cents.
Now, do you have to hold the device, or can you put it down on the table and like just spin it around from there?
You can put it down on the table. You can put it on a lazy Susan. My kids this weekend were spinning our office chair, getting nauseous.
You can even just stand there and spin around if you really want to make yourself sick very quick.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Last week we needed video footage of the room spinning around, and I played the game, and I walked out and I was like all sweaty, and my wife looked at me. She said, "What happened to you? What are you doing?" I said, "I was playing the game in the chair." And she's like, "Oh, you look awful." I couldn't even stand up straight. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, but that was before you played the game that was all happening, wasn't it, Scott?
I don't know. I would spin around in my chair all the time and just dream.
Nice. So there's a lot of different, like I was saying before the show started, there's a lot of aspects of this game that are just, you can tell, like you said, you guys have spent 3 years on this. I'm not surprised because there's so many fine details on this. And I know it may be hard to come through on the video here, but I don't know if you guys can see the smoke that's there, and it seems to be multi-layered smoke where it's kind of moving around, and things like with this foot tapping and I don't know, there's just all these little. The longer you sit there, you just find all these little details, and everything seems to also fit together well, as far as I don't know, just it seems to be very consistent. Can you guys talk about that process and how you kind of came up with the concept and how you kept it consistent?
Oh yeah, that's a good story actually. So when we originally conceived of the game, we were actually working on speccing another game, and we ran into some intellectual property possible issues, and we decided to pursue what we were calling at the time Super Mega Point, which was a much more sort of simplistic version of this game that we sort of envisioned in the vein of like Tilt to Live or some of these other, really just a great arcade game with very simple graphics. And we spent a lot of time prototyping it out, and once we got it to work, we were very excited, but we realized almost immediately that while, for me, a game like Tilt to Live, which I consider one of the great iPhone games of all time, really never got the due that it deserved, partially, I think, because it doesn't have the personalization and the characterization that other games, like, I hate to, but like the Angry Birds of the world and the Where's My Waters. And so we said, what we really need to do now is come up with some really interesting characters and experiences that we could frame the technical aspects of the game within, and maybe see if we could come up with something that would be more universally appealing. And so we had this great sort of conversation one day driving around and saying, well, gee, what could a game where you're spinning around the device be? And so we talked about fishing type games and all sorts of different things. And then at one point Scott said, well, gee, couldn't it be like a mad scientist? He's collecting something so he could bring monsters to life. And then within a few seconds after that, the game was called Dr. Spin, and we were moving forward and looking for an artist and waiting to sort of implement these ideas. So that wasn't in the original iteration of the concept, but once it was, we started really focusing upon how we could really put a lot of detail and exposition into those ideas so that it would really be this sort of almost like a movie-like experience wrapped around this very simple game concept that we could what we thought get out there very quickly. So we've been used to that notion.
We wanted a full immersive experience too for the player. That was really important to us from the beginning. We wanted you to feel like you were actually the assistant. You were being screamed at. You were actually doing something for Dr. Spin. That was a very important tenet in our development of this game.
Yeah. And then, once you sort of start down that path, the development of some of the artistic concepts and the sound and the voiceover work, those just came along. I mean, we talk about that sort of Michelangelo approach where it's like, it's a big block of marble and you're just chipping away everything that wasn't Dr. Spin. And then we always knew one day we'd chip away enough of it that the game would be there. And so that finally happened just recently, where we got to that sort of moment where we said, okay, we'll never be done, but we're done enough to be out there now.
Nice. I think that's the beauty of the App Store, is that you're never done, and you can keep going and enhancing and making it better and making it, just changing the game. And I think that's what Apple and what Google has brought to the table, is that is a palette that never ends. It's an expansive palette. You can go on and on and on.
So let me ask you: can you guys see the YouTube video here on in the Google Hangout?
I can. But I had to add the app though.
You had to add the app.
There's like a YouTube app or something.
Yeah, let me see.
But it worked great.
It's making me accept something here. There you go.
Don't worry, you're just signing your life away.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not sure if it's going to record this on the feed or not, but I figured we could try it out.
Yeah.
I got a server error.
Okay, well, okay, never mind.
I got a rock. I'm going to try one more time. Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Saying, get ready for something completely different.
You must be my new assistant. Need to keep the tracker aligned with the zeta ray. In this way, you will collect zetas. Zetas bring my creation to life. You must spin, spin, spin to keep up with the zeta ray. I am getting kind of dizzy.
Dr. Spin, coming soon for iOS.
All right.
Hopefully it comes through on the recording.
Nice.
Yeah. So did you guys?
YouTube video while while playing a YouTube video.
Oh yeah, man. We're pushing the whole envelope here. Everything. Just give it all to us.
We're gonna crash Google.
Yeah, exactly. So did you guys create the trailer yourselves, or did you have somebody do that for you?
Yeah. So we worked very close. We have a friend who is a great editor, and so we scripted it out and set up the shots, and then just sort of sat with him for a large number of hours while we sort of tweaked it and got the pacing right. And just sort of got that visualization. Really the same process that we took throughout the entire game, which a lot of it we did ourselves, but there are certain aspects that we went to people who were really skilled in particular areas, like helping us define some of the math that controls the zeta ray or the videos, and to sort of work with people iteratively to come up with something that we felt matched the level of the game and just kind of fit what we were looking for, you know. And sometimes that takes a lot of time and a lot of talking and collaboration before you get to that, but we try to be persistent with those sort of things.
On the math for the zeta rays, it seems like there's a point where it almost like lets you get comfortable, gets sort of centered for a little while, and then it goes flying off in the opposite direction. Is there a method to the madness, or is it just?
Yeah, it's, you know, so basically each of those movements is its own little function, and the function gets called through a random generator, and it's also based on the time where it is in the time of the game. It's also based on how much post track you have. It's based on a lot of different things.
Because
constantly listening to like all parts of the game, which is what made it complicated.
Well, it makes it's well worth the effort, because each round feels different. I mean, if it kind of had the same formulaic, you know, gameplay each time, then it would, you know, I'm sure it would get boring, you know, pretty quickly. But it doesn't, because it seems like the first couple of times I played, I wasn't really sure if I was doing it right, and then I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, well, I kind of got the hang of it, and then I tried to figure out if I could game the system. So I was tilting the phone, and I was doing, you know, kind of like you do with the Wii, right? The first week of the Wii, everybody was like really trying to bowl, and they're really trying to play tennis, and then that second week they're just flicking their wrist, trying to figure out the least amount of movement.
Right. Well, and that was where we were very inspired by games like Impossible Road, where you know, you could play it 100 times and do terribly 75 of those times, but every once in a while you had that magical sort of moment where you did really well, and part of that's random and part of that is just the way it comes up. And so what we wanted was an experience where you were incentivized to continue playing, even knowing that you know, you might do badly many times in a row. And the difference between a really good game and a really bad game is not that much.
Yeah.
So it was just an exercise in trying to understand how we could control that zeta ray and make it more fun and make it less repetitive.
Right, and that's actually was most of the work, was just the game mechanics and the gameplay and testing the gameplay. And we spent many hours testing it.
Well, I'll tell you.
Might have missed this at the beginning, but who did what? Who developed? Who did graphic? Who?
So, Steve Shreve is our designer and illustrator, and I did the programming, and Ed did the hard job of keeping us all in line and making sure we were staying true to the vision. I think that would be a fair assessment. And he provided all the voices and all the creative and all the copy, and he gave me a lot of inspiration to keep moving forward. There was a lot of hard points, you know, which I got stuck, and he'd say, "Don't worry about it. You know, you'll figure it out." Sure enough, a day later, it was figured out. So
that's a great team. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was awesome.
So he pulled a Steve Jobs on you.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You got it.
No, you can do it, and you'll do it in half the time.
I would be out, you know, sort of cavorting and having fun and, you know, hanging out. When I'd call Scott occasionally and say, "Are you still working?" And he'd say, "Yes, I am. I'm awake." And then, you know, we'd meet up again a week later, and he'd give me a bill.
Right.
It wasn't quite like that, but
no. It was, you know, it was I've done a lot of creative projects. It was by far probably the best creative project I've probably worked on in a very long time. So it was just amazing, and I think that's why we ended up with what we ended up with, because we both stayed true to the vision and we persevered and we pushed through. I think that's what makes doing these things possible. Is just a good teammate.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I mean, I come from a somewhat strict technical project management background also, so a lot of it is making sure that the rules are very carefully defined, making sure that all the documentation is available, making sure that any questions that could be asked are already answered before we get to that sort of crucial point where we've made a mistake and we have to go backwards. So that's not to say that we got everything right the first time out, but doing the research and really working hard to make sure that it's well defined before the coding even happened was a big part of it, for sure.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
major. That's major.
Did you guys have to? What do you think? What are your thoughts on scope creep and keeping things tight?
Yeah. Well, I think that for something like, I mean, when you've done this, you have an idea of what it's going to take. We always knew that there was going to be scope creep involved in this from the first couple of days as we started to have our levels set in terms of the reality of it and the learning curve. But we always said, hey, we could go out there and we could bring people in and we could spend money, or maybe we couldn't spend money, but if we had money, we could have spent it. But that's not really going to bring us what we really wanted. And so Scott and I both have been involved in numerous creative projects that really are about understanding and about doing it right and iteration after iteration. So we had sort of come to the acceptance early on that we were going to spend the time and that we weren't going to be too upset by the fact that it was going to take some effort to get it to work right. I mean, the original prototyping of the Zetascope and the tracker and the Zeta Ray really took about a year. And during that first year, at the same time, we were working with our artist, Steve, on the visual concepts and refining those over and over. So in many ways, it was like Scott's working on one side on getting the logic to work. I'm working over here trying to define some of the rules. And Steve is doing iterations on the art until we could all sort of come together. So I wouldn't exactly call it scope creep in this case because we accepted at the outset that we weren't going to be following any schedule other than what the creative exploration of our ideas would require. But if we did it now, and when we do the next one, we're going to be much more able to sort of say, here is the defined time period in which we think that it's going to take to do this and this and this and this. So now that we've done it, we have a better idea. But like any good sort of technical project, if you go into it without really the experience, you better be ready to have a long development cycle.
Okay, so there's an important part of the conversation that I heard is that you said when we do the next one. So do you guys plan to do another app together, or?
Oh yeah. We have a number of ideas that came out during this process and even before it. So we had worked for a good year on speccing a very complex game that we had envisioned that we called Roll With It. And right at the time that we finished getting that first iteration of documentation together, Google puts out almost the exact game on their failed games platform for Google Plus about two and a half years ago. Very close. Very, very close.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, let's
sort of heartbroken.
One of these other ones. But I think that it all happened the right way because that game we couldn't have done. The scope was so much larger on that game. It would not have been a good place to start a process like this.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So this was more defined, and even in its relative simplicity, obviously there's a lot of complexity that goes along with implementing that correctly. So I think it all happened the right way. But yeah, we're going to add to this. We'd like to add multiplayer to this. We foresee really fun if we could have sort of in the room 2-player multiplayer where one player is rotating their phone to control the ray and the other player is rotating their phone to control the scope. So really interesting head-to-head 2-player ideas, and then we've got like a list of what our next game might be, about 20 or 30 ideas that we've been kicking around while this has all been happening.
It's interesting you say that. I can't find it at the moment, but there's a game out there that's kind of like a spaceship, and it's a multiplayer game, and basically it's the same kind of thing. I mean, you have to collaborate with each other in order to win the game, and it's all based on I think you're on the same Wi-Fi network or whatever, but. Those types of things are fun because then it becomes less of an individual experience and more of a community type thing.
Yeah, we're very into the social concept part. I mean, that would be great to make it fun.
So Ed, you've got voiceover and project management, and Scott, you've got programming and things like that. So where did the music come from, and how did you guys coordinate that? And
Well, actually, back in my former life, I actually did music composition for television and film.
Well, that always helps.
Yes, that always helps.
And I am in a rock. I've been in a rock band for most of my adult life, also. So we.
What?
Oh yeah.
So this is how we kind of were introduced to each other.
Right.
Through our music.
What was the name of the rock band?
Atom Smasher. Yeah.
Atom Smasher. Okay.
Yeah, the world famous Atom Smashers. We still, are out there occasionally, but really, I've said this before. Rock is sort of, as an art form, it's sort of dead. And if you really wanted to be a rock star today, well, what you should be doing is making mobile games. So here we are.
Well, that's an that is very interesting, because I don't know if you guys have seen. There's a whole piece on one of these game developers where he gets a lot of flack for some of his commentary. He gets a lot of flack for things that he says online, and I'll have to find the link, put it in the show notes.
Is that the Fez guy, the guy that wrote
the Fez guy? Yeah, the Fez. Have you seen the Fez video where they're talking about how people come down on this guy and how it's the same thing as like when people say I hate Nickelback, they're really saying not necessarily Nickelback the band, but Nickelback the concept of selling out to a corporate marketing strategy where the music's just sort of pushed to the masses and it may not necessarily be the best quality product. It's kind of interesting that you say that because rock and roll or whatever has become very cookie cutter.
Yeah, pedestrian.
Mm-hmm. Very pedestrian, yeah. And so it's interesting that you'd say you can move to a platform like an app to be able to reinvigorate it or reinvent it as a new form of communication.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, I was just going to say, but it is also worth mentioning that at no point, I mean, we believe in in artistic endeavors, and this is definitely a commercial art project, no doubt. But again, it wasn't made really to like go out there and sell 1 million apps or to make money, as much as it was made to sort of take a goal and achieve it the way we wanted to achieve it, which I think is the same sort of goals that Scott and I both had in our previous sort of music lives, where you're doing it because you want to make something, and you want to make something that you would enjoy. When I made records, I was making them for myself to listen to more than to sell them, which is good because that's how it worked out. But really, I wanted to make a game that we would find fun, and just based on the fact that we're still playing the thing after years of testing the concept, and it remains challenging. I think we've had some success in really being able to make something that has some artistic value. That's not to say that commercial appeal is not also part of our desires here, but it's not the be-all and end-all thing, the way that like that Nickelback sort of comparison sort of plays. So it's art, and look, everybody takes flack because of the that fine line between personal art and commercial art and the sellout. But I've always said that if you have that many people hating you, you're doing something right.
Exactly.
All right. Oh yeah, I don't think anybody argues that they're not making money. That selling tickets and making money isn't the problem.
Yeah, right.
it's just a matter of whether or not that's the thing that they should be creating or that should be created. So it's interesting. Yeah, I especially with so many of the big titles using music or popular bands or even indie bands in their games. It's kind of interesting that you say that from a perspective of creating your own music and putting it in there.
Yeah. Oh, I should add though that while Scott and I did write the Dr. Spin theme music that you hear over the menu and during the video, by the time we got so deep into the game, we had always said, boy, one of these days we got to write the game music. We got to write the game music. And so we finally wrote something, and we just felt like it didn't hit all the notes. And so in this case, we went outside and we actually spoke to a very talented musician that we found, we found some of his work online, and we said, we'd like you to create something that hits this sort of 50s monster theme, and that it fits this idea that it's like some unnamed Eastern European country, so it should be fast and it should be fun. And so this dude, Michael Adels is his name, he just produced that music that you hear while you're playing the game, and just blew our minds. And like many of the things with this game that we didn't directly create or did, it was like, wow, I must have been sort of meant to be, because it just fits so damn well.
I just noticed that today when I was playing that the music while you're playing the game is just awesome, and I was wondering to myself, who made that? Like, it just fits really well.
Yeah.
So you're like, I want something that's like Papa Smurf meets Happy Days, and he came up with something.
It's Transylvania.
Well, that was our exact creative brief. Papa
Right,
Smurf
right.
is Happy Days.
Well, this whole process has felt like the stars have been aligned for us. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. I really felt really lucky that we did it, and we look back and you're like, wow, like we got the perfect music and we had the perfect art and the programming all worked out, and they found Corona. All those things, like, they added up to the stars being all aligned. This kismet kind of thing.
Well, I would say, in Scott, besides Scott's ability as a sort of creative problem solver, one of his other great talents is he's always on the lookout for new technologies. And so when we started talking about the idea that we wanted to have Dr. Spin, doing little videos and taunting you, he says, oh, well, what about Crazy Talk? So there's, and so we look into Crazy Talk, and it's just this real fast way that we can take very simple art that our artist did for us, and then I could sit there and sort of shape the animations around the voiceover stuff and just knock out hundreds of these things. I mean, granted, it took a year, but it's also about finding the right tools to facilitate the process, which is something that Scott does really well.
Yeah. Yeah, you should all check out Crazy Talk. It's a really brilliant tool.
Oh, yeah, well, definitely.
If you need, animated mouth moving type stuff, it's cheap and it works really, really well. And
is it cloud-based or is it a desktop?
No, it's desktop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy it in the Mac App Store, or you can buy it standalone, and it's just an amazing little tool. And I mean, it'll do what you put into it. But even at the lowest levels, you can turn out reasonably good animation that is coordinated with the vocals in a matter of minutes, really. And by minutes, I mean weeks. But
well, it's just like anything else. Once you have the blueprints for something, you can build a house within a certain amount of time. But if you're trying to put the blueprints together while you build the house, it takes a little longer. Exploring a tool like Crazy Talk, I'm sure, opens up so many opportunities that you can easily get distracted.
Definitely.
Well, hey, so the iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus, of course, is big in the news, and since you guys this game is, Dr. Spin's kind of like centered around moving the device. What do you guys think about this, the bigger form factor?
I think that's as big as you should spin. I've tried it on an iPad too. It's too heavy, but you put it on
really?
Susan, and it's good. Like my kids were playing it head to head on two Lazy Susans.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it, but it was always a game that fit the iPhone better than the tablet experience. That's not to say you can't play it on a tablet.
You can.
But the fact that you can sort of, hold your iPhone 6 sort of still. We haven't tried it on the Plus yet. I think we have to wait till tomorrow for the Plus.
Tonight.
But it works really well in that format where you can sort of just put it in your hands and just keep the thing spinning around. But having said that, I mean, people will do whatever people will do, and the biggest thing that we're always worried about is that somebody drops their device while they're playing it. We don't want that to happen, of course.
Yeah, I noticed there was I didn't see any messages that said, "Hey, you're responsible for any breakage."
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a ticket in jail for that.
Well, I was listening to This Week in Tech, and they were talking about this whole idea of form factor and whether or not Apple will get rid of, the smaller screens and stuff. And I don't see any reason why they would. I mean, it's still a very popular device. I love my 5 as far as size and portability and being able to hold on to it. And they get the 5Cs and things like that. What do you guys think? You think that they'll hang on to it?
I mean, I think it's going to hang out for the time being. I think that there's definitely this whole sort of bigger phone thing that obviously has been going on for a long time. I always was indeed partial to a device that I could hold in one hand and operate. Like, I came up through like the trios. So for me, it was like, sort of doing everything and then typing in the other hand. But once you make that transition to iPhone, you're sort of saying that, at some point you're going to have to put both hands on the device anyway. So I think that the bigger and bigger and bigger, there's got to be a limit somewhere, but I don't know where it is. I mean, the Plus is freaking gigantic.
I'm going to find out tonight. I just got a text message that it's there. It's waiting for you.
That's excruciating because now you're sitting here.
No, it's fine. It's way more important.
I tell you, I ordered mine. I stayed up late and suffered through the.
I ordered two. One for my wife, one for me.
Well, mine doesn't come till Thursday, and so this weekend I went and I went down to the Apple Store to kind of see. I don't know, just to see, right? Being the geek that I am, I just couldn't stand not touching the device before Thursday.
Right.
So I went down there, and the first thing that I went right to the 6 Plus because that's the one that I want. And I did see though that some people were, as soon as they saw the 6 Plus, they were just like, "Oh, that's huge." I think you just used the term gigantic. And what do you feel like what makes you say that it's gigantic? What?
Well, if you're coming from the Apple sort of mindset, it's going to be gigantic because it's just so much larger than anything previously. Although at the same time, it's not that much smaller than an iPad Mini. So really, I think it's all sort of converging into sort of choose your own, size sort of metaphor. And if you're a big guy and you want to have a big phone, then you have a big phone.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the original arguments that Jobs used to talk about in terms of size, they applied 4 or 5 years ago for sure, because the whole idea of using a phone in this sort of new way was not fully accepted, and it was a transitional time. And now we've sort of come into the next phase, and Android has helped lead that way. Yep. And so people now can accept the idea of how you're going to interact with a mobile device and what that really means. So the idea of more choice and larger devices and smaller devices, it all makes sense. It just drives people crazy who have to make games in 45 different formats.
Right. And it just, the other problem is it just bloats the size of these games up to 3 or 4 times the size they need to be.
Yeah. So which 6 Plus did you order then? Did you order the 128?
I got the 64 gig.
Really?
Yeah. It's been enough. I keep looking at my current 5S, and I've never really hit the 64 gigs. I downloaded the pictures and stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't typically carry anything on the device, but again, like you say, it's a bigger form factor. I could easily see leaving the house without my laptop or my tablet, because when I leave, I take the laptop, I take the tablet, I take the iPhone, and just be prepared for whatever I might need to do.
Yeah.
I could see with the 6 Plus just taking the phone all by itself. And that being said, I said, okay, well then let me experiment at least with on this generation to see if I would actually use 128, if I would actually maybe even use it as a portable hard drive, in some respects.
Right. It's interesting. I'm excited to see how it's going to change my usage. Bigger screen.
I think it's like anything else. The bigger it gets, the more you'll tend to use that space.
Mm-hmm.
And content is growing in size, and so I wish I had gotten the 128 size on the 6 itself, but I too went for the 64 for economic reasons.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the factors. Like you say, the games are getting bigger because they're required to support different resolutions and different size devices and all that kind of stuff. Also. I have run into those situations because when I got the 5, I got like the 16 gig, so I have run into those situations where you want to do something and you're out of space. Even recording video on the device, you're kind of like, oh, I'm out of space.
Like updating to iOS 8.
Like updating to iOS 8, for example.
Or something like that.
Right. I mean, I couldn't even do it on my phone. I had too much stuff on it. They're like, you need 8.67 gigabytes to install a 1.2 gigabyte file. It's like, okay, thank you.
Right. Well, and with all the slow-mo kind of stuff that they have on the phone now, and just I don't know. I just figured 128. If worst case scenario, I don't use it all, and then I'll know next time. I'll be like, oh, well, I didn't use it all, So, and I tend to use I drive the wheels off my phone. I keep it for the last one I've had for 2 years, so I'm kind of like, eh. So which kind of brings up the concept of these plans, these subsidy plans. Let's talk about that for a moment. I don't know if you guys are getting new phones. Did you run into any issues there when you were trying to upgrade with your carrier?
Well, I mean, we flip-flop plan. I take my wife's, I get the new one. I usually give it to her, and so this time I actually bought the phone. I bought her phone because it was cheaper, and I stole her upgrade and upgraded my phone. So, I felt like if we're doing this game, we need to know what's happening. It's too hard to talk to somebody over the phone and say, hey, how does it look? Oh, it looks great. And you get it, and the game is, it's all messed up or it looks overly stretched out. I just didn't know what we were going to run into. And especially we're launching this game right as the iPhone 6 is coming out. I wanted to be prepared.
I think that the whole, like what Verizon is doing with building the price of essentially just taking the subsidy and moving it to the monthly installment and just tacking 10 or 12 bucks onto it to pay for the phone over the life. I think that's a very reasonable approach, especially as these devices just are sort of advancing so much on a yearly basis now. It used to be, or at least a lot of people, you buy a phone, you keep it for many of my friends have their phones from 3 or 4 years ago at this point, so they're still running 4s or even in some cases even earlier. So I think it's probably good to have it both ways. I mean, it's a loss leader initially. They want to get you in the door and paying the bills. But now that, again, the market is evolving and changing, so the idea of spreading the cost of the device out up front and then just putting that into the bill, I think it makes sense. I'm on a corporate plan, so it doesn't affect me in the same way, but I have to have a new phone every year. So I would be doing whatever it took to get the new phone.
Well, if you look at Apple's trend, they put out a new phone every year, and I've typically skipped a generation each time. So I think that I'm probably not the target market that they're after. The people who are either switching phones or wanting to switch phones all the time, that sort of thing. They're probably after those. And I would imagine that subsidizing a phone and then not being able to realize the return on it is probably where they're like, okay, look, smartphones are no longer a novelty. They're no longer brand new, and everybody knows about them. And most people probably have either converted or considered converting. So now it's, like you say, a maturing of the conversation where they're just like, okay, now you need to pay for the phone.
And I would rather just pay for the damn phone and just say, okay, this is my phone, and if I want to take it to AT&T, I'll take it to AT&T and not have to worry so much about getting locked or any of that kind of stuff anymore.
I tell you what was the surprising part, and here's the part of the conversation that I wasn't prepared for, was, everybody said the Apple Store is going to go open up, at this time, and you need to be ready, and you need to be, kind of like you're going to be pushing elbows with everybody else. And so I had my credit card out, I had all my information ready, I had everything updated in my Apple Store. I was ready to go. And then I got to the point when I finally did get through, because of course everybody knows the story about how the Apple Store went. I reached that point where they said, there was the carrier conversation, and they said, okay, well, do you want to do the subsidized version, or do you want to lose your $25 a month whatever credit that I was getting on my account towards my super plan, whatever they call that, right? And I was like, wait, what? I'm going to lose 25 bucks a month. Wait, what? And so come to find out, I guess maybe a year or so ago, my whole plans dropped. They reshuffled the plans, and then I came across the reshuffling. I said, oh, look, I can save about $100 a month on my bill, and that's fantastic. Let's do that. I get more data and all those types of things, right? Oh, look, a nice shiny worm, and so been rocking along on that. And then now what I find is that if I get that subsidized phone, then basically I lose my $25 credit, and then so the math shakes out to where it makes sense for me to just buy the phone and not subsidize it, which I think is an interesting strategy. I am kudos to the carriers for being able to think that far ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 5 years now, right? It's like the whole people hanging on like grim death to those unlimited original AT&T plans or even Verizon ones, where it's like, I don't want to do anything because I will lose my unlimited data. But if you really do the math and you start looking into it, most of those people were never even coming close to their, to the kind of numbers anyway. And if you spend your life like we do, where you're basically just moving from one hotspot to another, it doesn't really matter that much. But I understand this desire not to lose something, which I think is what it's all about.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting that I'm sure I'm not the only one. I know, everybody. I feel like here's the way I feel, and I don't know if anybody else feels the same way. Is that I was all excited about the iPhone launch. The store issues with the store was a little disappointing, and then the next morning when I woke up, I was like, wait a minute. I went through this whole situation where I had a whole realization that the subsidized phone no longer exists. So I felt like I had a double whammy where I was like, I woke up the next morning, kind of not really sure, who I had been dating the night before, and not sure where I was, Yeah. I felt a little weird,
Buyer's remorse finally kicking in.
Yeah.
That never happened early on. When that first iPad came out, man, when I walked out of that store, I was like, holy shit. And
I remember when you got that.
Yeah.
You were a convert forever.
That's true. I used
to walk into his office, and they used to shake their heads at me like, what are you Apple guy? What are you doing with this Apple stuff? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I was introduced to the original the original iPod, the brick. I was originally introduced to that through work because I was the only one who knew what a podcast was, and so they gave the project to me and said, here, put together this podcast feed for this client that we had, and they went out and bought an iPod because they're like, well, we have to have one so we can test it. And I was like, no, you don't, but okay, I'll play with it. So I took it home and I messed with it and I loaded a bunch of songs on it, and I was completely amazed by the fact that how fast it moved the music over and the whole user experience and all that kind of stuff like that. And that was really the gateway drug to Apple. From there I brought a Mac and I bought a phone and I bought an Apple TV and all that stuff. So
yeah, a very similar story for me. I actually came when I was a kid. It was like Apple IIe, and that was my first machine. And then later on, switched over to PCs. And then really, like when I met Scott, I think it was like 2009, I got an Touch and said, I got to look at this thing. I was using at the time, like a Touch Pro 2, like an HTC Touch Pro running Windows Mobile, whatever it was called then. I was just like 15 minutes into it, was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be moving back in the Apple world because the UI was just so goddamn good. It was just such a night and day situation to what Windows was doing in the mobile space at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the same loop. I went from Mac to PC and then back to Mac again. So somewhere along the line, they fished me back in.
They did it.
Yeah,
I built these apps.
I tell you what, I heard a thing the other day that said basically, computers are dead. Mobile is it. Mobiles are the new computers, right? So,
oh yeah.
So it's funny to have all this history with the computer, the personal computer. And really, we haven't even scratched the surface of it yet because the phone, or the mobile device, is the most personal gadget that we could possibly have so far.
Yeah, the phone is to consume all the things we make on the computers at this point. Like,
yeah.
You still need the platform to develop things and to create content in some cases, although not all, obviously.
Yeah.
But really, the central way that we will consume entertainment and the rest of our lives will be in mobile for sure.
Well, I know there's architects who use, drafting software, and there's people who do, gene sequencing, and there's always edge case kind of stuff. But I think for the most part, a lot of people have a lot of computing power, or have had a lot of computing power at their fingertips for a very long time, and they use it for solitaire and, Internet Explorer, and I think that tablets and things like that are just a realization that you really don't need all that computing power, as long as you can do some very specialized things, taking pictures or talking with friends or checking email and all that kind of stuff. So while they can do more advanced stuff, so far it hasn't had the capabilities of the tools have not kept people from buying it.
Yeah, and that's what Apple's been so successful at is taking those very, sort of almost mundane operations that people want to do and just making them as simple to use as possible. See, that's what Microsoft could not handle in the mobile environment, was making these things simple. You have to pull a stylus out and click on a tiny little button just to get to something. You're just not going to use. You're not going to interact with the device the way the way we've come to expect now. So
yeah, right. Now, I will tell you, about a year ago, I bought a Wacom display tablet, and it has a pen that comes with it, and you can use it to draw on the screen. And it's it's a very specialized device, but I enjoy that kind of interaction with the device and being able to draw on the screen. And here recently I have actually pre-ordered, thanks to Greg, I've pre-ordered the Stylus 2 from Wacom so that you can actually draw on the iPad. And this weekend I went and I looked at the Surface Pro 3 at the Microsoft store, and it's a really nice device. I mean, they have come a long way with their technology. Oh,
without a doubt. It's a great device. And it really fills a sweet spot of people who still want to have some of those more PC-like functions while at the same time getting some of the UI stuff that Apple did so well. Having said that, I too had experimented with many different solutions for like physical note-taking, of which I'm a maniac for. And in the end, it I just realized that for me, it's just always going to be notes on paper. I mean, it just never got to the point where I felt comfortable and also felt like I could take it everywhere that I would want to go, because you just don't want to drop your device on the floor in there because it's just going to shatter immediately.
Yeah,
I'm still reliant on notepads myself. I love it.
Well, back to the conversation about mobile. I think mobile has made developers more aware about optimization too. I think one reason why Apple has been very successful is they've optimized their experience. The UI, the programming, the graphics, everything. They control everything, and they've really learned how to optimize. And that's, I think, is a big key to these mobile apps.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because if anyone who has pulled up Xcode, and tried to use Objective-C, compared to using Eclipse and the Android SDK and stuff like that, knows that it's a lot. Well, at least I feel like it's a lot tighter on the Apple side of things, on the iOS side of things. The IDE works a lot better. Giving you feedback on errors and things like that, and the language itself is tight, and all those types of things like that. So that's one of the reasons why I would rather develop a native app in Corona versus doing it in using the Android SDK and Eclipse, because it's a whole lot easier to do it in Corona than it is to try to do it in its native language.
Absolutely.
Doing it in Java. So.
Well, I mean, our game would have been twice as much code if we did it.
So, are you guys going to release Dr. Spin on Android at any point?
I knew that question was coming. Probably at some point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to take a little bit of tweaking, but we've played around with it, and it'll run. We're going to have to spend some time with it, though. But we always said that we were going to get it out on the iPhone first, and then we'd sort of also we want to listen, and we're already hearing it from the people who've already gotten involved. I mean, the question is coming up repeatedly, so I think it will happen. Just going to take a little bit more time and thought to get it there. I just want to respond to something else that you said, Charles, which was I've always found it to be very interesting that I work in other capacities, defining large enterprise software projects that work on Windows-based machines. And one thing that I always notice through the years of this is that every one of these developers is walking around with a Mac, and the platform they're ultimately working towards is PC. They themselves preferred the interface and the flexibility of what Apple has done. So that was not lost upon
the developers.
Yeah, the developers, and just how we saw that all happening, and as we slowly sort of shifted our mindset over to this sort of new way of doing things.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I experience the same thing. When you go out and you look at developers and what they're using, it's interesting how many of them are using Macs. That said, I think that Apple has just like anything else, they've become the one to beat, and I think that their competitors are really ramping up.
Yeah.
And if they are not always on their game, they'll have some very serious competition.
They already do it.
Yeah, exactly. They already do, but it's one thing to like, again, we talked about this at the top of the show. Was right now there's the mind share of Apple. When I went to this weekend, went to the Apple store, there was people packed everywhere. I mean, you couldn't move without bumping into somebody, and then the people were lined up out the door. And then in the same outdoor shopping plaza there, I went across the way to the Microsoft store, and the sales guys were watching the football game.
When I went to Microsoft, they were playing Xbox.
They
were playing Xbox, and I went back to the Apple store. They were fixing a phone, and I said to them, "You're 100 times busier." It wasn't even a busy day for the Apple store. They're like, "This isn't busy."
Yeah. So
you could bring a video camera downstairs and shoot a video and send it to Apple corporate. They would love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the Apple Store really has been the greatest. I mean, of all the products that Apple's released over the years, in many ways, the store itself is the crowning achievement. To be able to create this play, because it is, like you said, it's a place where people come to mind share and to be with like-minded individuals who have something in common, and to be able to create that goes way beyond technology. That's psychology. That's engagement. That's all the things that technology is there to further, but itself cannot really achieve. So that's what's so mind-blowing about the whole thing to me.
Yeah. Well, real quick, we're going to run out of time, but have you guys seen the drop test results for iPhone 6 from phone off?
Yeah, unfortunately.
The drop test on the corner didn't fare too well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that according to the results there, he looked like the screen was actually coming away from the device itself.
Yeah.
So as opposed to before where it was cracked, but it was all kind of held in place. So that'll be interesting. I actually went out and bought. I went on to Amazon and I bought a case this weekend. I went ahead and just said, oh, you know what? I'm pretty careful with my phone, but the 6 is very rounded, very slippery. Let me just go ahead and get a $10 case just to protect my investment. So
yes, because did you see the out of warranty prices for repairs? They're over $300.
Oh, are they? Are they? I went ahead and got Apple Care and all that kind of stuff like that because it was one of those. Of all those times when somebody's ever tried to sell you a warranty, this is one of those times when it makes sense. And it's next to nothing. In terms of the price of the device. So. But I looked at the cases that they had at the Apple Store, and they're $40 cases. But you go on Amazon and you can get one for $10.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like wearing a Nike logoed shirt. I don't want to pay for the logo. No. I already paid for the logo when I bought the device.
Yeah, that's right.
We totally had to also. I mean, I did exactly what you did. I actually bought an interim case. I usually get I like the little holster with the CDO case that has the kickstand, but they haven't made that one yet. So I just bought this cheap $15 or $10 case because we are playing a game here where breaking the phone is a distinct possibility anyway.
So we've never broken a phone.
No, we haven't broken one yet.
Nope.
That's not to say it won't happen 30 seconds from now, though.
Right.
Good. And of everybody on the panel here, what do you guys think about Taptic? This, the thing that's going to be in the iWatch. Do you think that's a gimmick, or do you think that actually has some potential to be a real communication tool?
Come again. What is it?
Taptic, okay, so in the iWatch or the Apple Watch, they
where you
this thing they
draw
call
doodles and
Taptic.
send them.
What's that?
Where you draw doodles and send them to your friend.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Well, and the other part of it where it actually it vibrates and things like that. So you could go to a party and you could send a message to a friend via vibration.
Oh,
which sounds.
I guess. Couples will send dirty pictures to each other and only.
Well, what's interesting? They did the heart rate monitor, and you can actually send your heart rate to somebody else, and then it will buzz the Taptic feedback sensor on your wrist.
That's the problem. If you send your heart rate and it's okay, it's good. But if you send your heart rate which is non-existent, like your heart stopped, your friend does not see anything, and he thinks that everything is okay. But in fact, he should call ambulance or something. 911. All right.
I never thought about sending a flatline to somebody.
Yeah. How do you send a flatline?
No clicks.
I can see that getting used for like dating and hookups and stuff. It starts vibrating more when you're next to somebody looking for
a hookup.
You know,
warmer,
colder. Things like that years ago in Japan, though, they had little buttons you could wear that had light sensors that would change colors and stuff when you got close to a potential mate.
Yeah, you could build integration into Tinder.
Potential mate indicators.
Right.
Right. You just walk around. It's like, oh yeah, I'm very, compatible with that person, and it's vibrating already.
Tell me again why you walked onto the train track? Well, this thing was vibrating, and he just kept going.
See, I think there's a party game in there someplace. Whoever makes the first Apple Watch apps, is gonna, they're all gonna be millionaires, and I think.
Do you think Corona will support this?
I wouldn't see why not. But there's nothing officially been announced.
When is the?
I wouldn't see why not.
I guess I can look that up.
What did you say, Ed?
When is the watch coming out?
Well, it hasn't been announced. It's just early 2015.
I think they were saying early spring for 2015.
So
Charles, before the show wraps up, where did you get your shirt?
Oh, this is from Ray from Stinky Kitties, stinkykitties.com. So
can you buy them, or are they just one-off?
I'm working on that. I got to figure out the logistics, but yeah, I think we should definitely hook that up and make them available for sale, because I love wearing this thing around.
It's awesome. I'd wear one.
Yeah, it's I don't know where Ray got his the stock, but the shirts are comfortable, and
be good to give away to guests.
It would be good to give away to guests.
We should be giving away to you.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint.
Well, when Dr. Spin shirts come out at some point, we'll make sure to get you all one.
Yeah, you should definitely have a shop over at drspingame.com. You guys just hook that up so we can get a shirt. If you guys haven't had a chance to, is it already published? Is it already in the App Store?
Yeah, it is. We said fall, and we meant fall because today is the first day of fall, I believe.
Yeah, or yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. That's all right. Scott's on developer time.
Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's always.
I don't even know what day it is anymore.
That's it. You just came up for air, right? It was just put out yesterday, so well, good. Yeah. So you guys, if you're out there listening, go check out drspingame.com. Look it up in the Apple Store. It's it comes up whenever you search, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely something that you could probably do at a party, even though right now, I don't think like you guys said, it doesn't have the collaborative thing right now, but you could do it at a party. And I think it, maybe you included some blindfolds, maybe
head spin off.
A spin off, yeah, make it fun. So go check it out, and thanks guys for being here, for sharing it with us.
Hey, no, my pleasure. Thanks,
Charles. It was our great pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
No problem. Hey, Sergey, I want to say congratulations on getting your picture taken with the creator, one of the creators there of Lua.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Yeah, Roberto.
How did that conference go? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I had really great time. There are a lot of awesome talks. The guy promised that the video will be available in about a month or something like that. So there are pretty good talks out there.
Excellent. Well, next time let's talk more about the sessions that were there and some of the takeaways that you had.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can. I can scan through all the topics and give a few comments.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Excellent. That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's do that
today.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Yay.
Happy birthday.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's the middle of the night there, right? So yay.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here, and have a great week. And until next time, happy coding.
Bye.